Free advice, would you like some free advice? Free advice forever.
Welcome to episode number 36, people.
We are such mature adults.
Yeah, I like 3, 6 because 3 is half of 6. You go 3, 6, 9.
And it's 6 squared.
And it's
a perfect square.
Oh, yeah, 36 is 6 squared.
Yeah. Don't you just love it when it works out that way?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Say, do you have any advice you'd like to ask me for at the beginning of this episode?
That's a great question, Rob Zaleski. Let's see.
No problem, Morgan Beard.
I realize we stopped introducing ourselves.
We're sprinkling shit.
But some people still don't know us.
Sprinkle me.
Some people are listening to this for the first time. Do I have any advice questions for
Legions
you?
of new fans in Lithuania.
They've already started building the statues.
Yeah, the Soviet bloc is just littered with our heart images.
Well, before we started recording, I was in real time asking you for advice, and that was a pretty lengthy issue. So I feel probably we could do an abbreviated version of that.
All right. You want to revisit something from off there?
Yeah, as I was explaining to you, my grandmother, who is my only living grandparent and really the only grandparent I had a significant relationship with, she recently, due to health issues, was moved from her apartment in her retirement complex to healthcare, which is where they have just more intense caretaking and signals a decline in her health. She's 98, so, you know, of course. But essentially this has given my mom, especially, who is her daughter, and they don't really have a close relationship. She's very involved with her life, but they're not close. The leverage to kind of try to get me to spend time at home, and just kind of slightly make it about her rather than give me the information required to make my own decisions about how I want to deal with, you know, the ending stages of my relationship with my grandmother, basically. So my question would be, without getting involved in that, without making this issue about my mom and my relationship and that dynamic, how do I communicate to her my needs for my relationship with my grandmother in order to close that out the way that I feel is best, and not let her ideas about what she would do kind of get in the way. She does difficulty perspective taking.
I think I understand. My summary, you can correct me if I get anything wrong, is you have a relationship with your grandmother that you want to honor and see her before her health fails. Right. And your mom has her own schemes about what you should know, when you should know it, and when you should visit, and how you should
that information.
How you should have a relationship with your grandmother. Yeah. And that's difficult for you. Yeah. Okay.
Because both of us have not great relationships with her.
Right. Got it. So she should not be your go-between. No. It sounds like what you want is a direct line of contact or some other alternate messenger to contact your grandmother, because you can't trust your mom to be a reliable, unbiased, like there's for multiple reasons you can't use her.
Yes, but more so like, how do I communicate with her? How do I communicate with my mom about this issue that she clearly doesn't understand?
Yeah, I think you say, I care a lot about my relationship with grandma, and I don't feel like I can communicate with her or coordinate my plans through you effectively, and I would like to use an alternative, whether that's go directly through the nursing home people or the whatever living community is called, or through dad, or through some other family member that is able to contact her.
Not a bad idea.
I think that's what you got to tell her, and she doesn't need to understand that. You can just say that, and if she wants to know why, you can save that conversation for later. You can give a short explanation, or you can say, I don't want to tell you why. This feels important to me, and so I'm going to ask for another person to help me contact grandma.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think that's a great idea, not even involving her in that relationship. Unfortunately, the problem I foresee is that then gives her license to, or gives her kind of like ammunition to be like, well, why? Well, what is this? She won't take like
Do you
no
have to answer
for an
those
answer.
questions?
You know, in theory, as we're sitting here and I'm sitting across from someone who isn't looking at the issue like my mom would and isn't roping me into some emotional like power dynamic and like, you know, toxic kind of thing, it's like, yes, I could. When I actually get on the phone with her, who knows what the fuck I'm going to say.
Do you have to answer her calls?
She gets very upset when I don't.
Is she allowed to be upset?
Yes. Yes. It's so interesting because I have such a blind spot when it comes to my mom specifically about these issues, where it's like, you know, I can easily give someone else advice about it. I can easily know, you know, this is the right thing to do or this is within my rights. But like my mom has so little understanding of like boundaries, what that even is. She doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
So when faced with someone like that, and that being my prior dynamic with her that I regress to so easily, it's actually very hard for me, even knowing all of that, to step up to the plate the way that I want to.
This is very common.
Yeah.
I speak to a lot of people, including people in my own family, who feel this way about their mothers.
Yeah.
This is the person who gave you milk when you would have died if you didn't have it.
Well,
or
sometimes
some version of that. I just want to say that this is super common with moms, that I have a blind spot with my own mom. It takes talking to other people to realize, like, oh, the way that you're talking about this person, you wouldn't let other people treat you like that. Why?
Right.
You know, the mother might not be intentionally abusing you or intentionally holding you back in some way. I mean, it's nice to believe that everyone's mother wants the best things for them, but mothers have their own needs too, and have their own emotional wounding that they're dealing with.
Totally.
And so a lot of times that can be unintentionally damaging to the kid that they're interacting with. So I'm really happy that you asked about this and what you said about having a blind spot and like seeing that you may need to assert boundaries with your mom that she's not comfortable with, and you can explain them as much or as little as you want. Yeah. I think that if your mom, whether she loves you or not, which I believe she does, you got to look out for yourself, and that might mean less contact with her or less. You won't always be doing things on her terms. Yeah. That's going to be, you know, a super helpful attitude for you to take in dealing with all kinds of family events. If she's acting like the gatekeeper to family, then then you may not have access to anyone in your family if you don't get through her tests or pass her, you know, her needs first. And if you're not going to be meeting her needs, I think you got to go around her in order to like maintain other relationships if they matter to you, which is up to you.
Yeah, I think that's putting it into perspective more clearly than what I was even aware of or articulating before, of like, yeah, she's making herself this like gatekeeper to my relationship with her mother, and it's just not fair. And it ignores the significance of my relationship with my grandmother. Which, you know, I have empathy for that scenario too, because I know that that's just not a kind of relationship she's capable of having with either of us. Yeah. And that's really unfortunate. So yeah, I think trying as hard as I can not to make it about her and my relationship with her, and recognizing when that's going on and making sure that it stays about me and my grandmother. Mm-hmm. Because I will be mad at myself too if my grandmother passes away, and whenever she passes away, if that experience and my processing of it is so deeply entrenched in me not asserting proper boundaries with my mom, and missing out on the type of closure to that relationship that I know that I need, and I know that my grandmother needs.
I think that this is really important work for everyone to do.
Totally.
Not just you. I think that if we're ever going to have world peace, if we're ever going to get along better with each other, It starts with every person knowing themselves, knowing what they need, and communicating that directly to the people who are closest with them. And this sounds like something that you need, or something that, for you to be yourself and be a happy, loving member of a community, you can't go through your mom to access your grandma or access all other relationships that she might be, tangentially related to.
Right. Yeah.
And there are other things, other boundaries like that, but this sounds like an important one with your mom.
Yeah, and I think that so much of my childhood or relationships with family at all do have, in the past at least, necessitated this certain type of interaction between me and my mom that just is a distraction from the rest of it and a hindrance to the rest of it. Yeah, and it's unfortunate. And it really, it gives me a new perspective through which to like look at those things and think about, in what ways am I still kind of like letting myself basically be bullied into feeling a certain way or doing a certain thing.
Yeah. How old are you?
Right now?
No, 3 years from now.
How old am I 3 years from now?
Yeah, how old are you right now?
29.
So 32 is what I was looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you think a person at 29, it's not even really a fair thing to say because it's not like everyone's the same at 29, but...
Right. Well, theoretically, a person who's 29 should have whatever kind of fucking relationship they want with anyone in their family that they want to.
That's how I feel too. I mean, there's exceptions for people who have emotional or mental developmental differences. They may need a conservatorship. You don't have one of those. You legally are independent as an adult.
Yes.
You're neurotypical by most ways that people judge that.
Yeah.
So I think there's something I'm going through too. A lot of people never do it, or a lot of people do it when they're 16 or 17. They really like move out and cut off most dependence on their parents for any kind of, there's different types of dependence. You could be financially dependent. You could be emotionally dependent. You could be communicationally dependent. Like they could be your go-between for other relationships. I think figuring out your own values and your own schedule, your own priorities, that's something that some parents will really struggle to allow you to do in certain realms.
Right.
Maybe in all realms, but for me, that's been an issue. Like financially and travel-wise, it's been tough for me to set boundaries about when I do want to travel, what I think I should spend money on, what money's mine versus family's, that type of thing.
Yeah.
It's difficult to navigate. And I think as people in our late 20s, some people would look at this and be like, what? I did that when I was 18. And
right.
It's what's the consequence of privilege? Maybe it's part of the culture that we're a part of, but childhood, adolescence has been extended in our culture to a large degree. Some people still live with their parents in their 40s and 50s. It's not necessarily like a clear thing that when you're 18, you move out of the house and you disentangle your life from your parents. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I think for the type of life that I'm trying to live, it's important for me to communicate boundaries and be able to have my own values and not see everything through the lens of my mother and father. Those are great lenses that I'm glad that I had available to me when I was a kid and as an adolescent. And now that I'm trying to be more of an independent adult, I think it's important for me to communicate to them like, hey, that's a good value for you and I have a different one. Like my Christmas or my relationship with this relative needs to be different from yours, or it needs to not be like seen through that filter that you see it through. Yeah.
And I think that a pitfall that I end up falling into quite frequently is that I get so frustrated by the discrepancies between what my mom thinks and what I think that I often am too reactionary against, or I come out looking like I'm just doing something to go against her because it frustrates me so much.
Yeah.
And I struggle to communicate the reasons why because she won't tolerate them. She doesn't recognize them as valid.
Sure.
So then I end up just looking like a toddler.
Yeah. Sounds
do
like
I
you're
need her
asking for it in
recognition?
some sense by you're expecting her to understand things that you've learned.
I need her recognition.
Of
it
these
depends.
things or validation is
Honestly,
really,
it depends.
valid.
Do I, for my own sense of self? No. But often in order to accomplish certain tasks, yes.
Sure. What type of task? Can you give an example?
Well, okay. If I wanted her to pay for example, me to visit, like pay for that
like
flight.
a flight home, yeah.
You know, this is just an example. Like it would be like, okay, so some of the things I'm doing are on her terms. But then, you know, sometimes it's just she casts this really long shadow for such a small woman. And I honestly, I revert back to being this like afraid child because she's so harsh. And it becomes more trouble than it's worth to stand my own against her. Obviously this is still stuff I'm like very much working through, but I think that like what will help me to get through the challenging nature of that is to remember that the important thing is my relationship with my grandmother and not, I will have more life to figure out my relationship with my mom than I will have to figure out my relationship with my grandmother. Yeah.
And you already have had and have a relationship with your grandmother. And if something does happen where you're unable to see her, it doesn't take away from it doesn't have to.
Of course.
The experiences that you have, the memories that you have, and the meaning that you found in that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's tough because from my mom's point of view, though, it's like, well, if you don't come home for this thing, then it's like you're acting in spite of her, or like, how could you do that to her? And it's like, don't put that in my head because that's just not accurate. It's just, she sees the world so differently from me that it's hard to even find these points of like either acceptance of each other being different, or walking away from that toxic dynamic. So, but I think I have some higher priority items that I can use to guide my communication on this particular issue. So I appreciate you taking the time to articulate it this way.
You're welcome. I have one last recommendation. Sure. You probably already know. I don't know if you're practicing it regularly.
Sure.
But it sounds like when she frustrates you, you often craft a well-intentioned and thoughtful response of why these things are frustrating and what you actually need. And then when you communicate this to her, whether it's written or verbal, she doesn't doesn't seem to really try or doesn't seem to follow what you're asking.
In that way, yes, I do keep expecting her to validate something.
I think you may have a need, or you find it helpful to order these thoughts, especially like someone with a long history. I think it's really helpful to, when you're angered or when you're upset in any way by your mom, do write these things down. Do like make sense of it for yourself, but don't express it to her and expect any kind of response from her. You can express it to me, a friend who like sees the world more similarly to you, or you can share it with a therapist, or you can just write it down, read it aloud, and say, okay, that feels good to say, and have that out of my head and in the world. And then you don't expect your mom to react to it. It's just, there is actually some healing that happens from expressing something that was stuck inside you. 100%.
100%. And I think I need to be more cognizant of when I'm getting entangled, because I'm still discovering, it's easy for me to coach someone or be an ear to someone else's issue and identify like, okay, this is toxic. This isn't, like, kind of being that sounding board. And then when it comes to your own shit, what makes something toxic?
It's like it's a buzzy word these days. And I'm hesitant about it. And I'd love to hear your criteria for that.
So the criteria as I see them are that the I imagine like a balance or a scale where, it has two different arms, and every relationship has some pros and some cons, like some things that fall on the good side, some things that fall on the bad side, and weigh them down. And some relationships, there are more rocks or grains of sand or experiences that are positive, and the negative ones are trumped by those positives. And those are the relationships you want to keep in your life because they overwhelmingly bring you positive things.
Sure.
In a toxic relationship, the conflict is what primarily characterizes the relationship. The push-pull of the dynamic.
Does it need to be outright conflict of people yelling at each other and their disagreements?
No. Oh, no,
What
of course not. It's about,
be?
well, it's honestly about how the relationship makes you feel. How does that person make you feel predominantly? And in toxic relationships that I've been in, that I've seen others in, excuse me, what happens is we hold on to this little grain of sand of, oh, they made me feel this way, or it felt perfect in this situation, or they helped me through this one thing. But the day-to-day, for the most part, is I feel anxious when I'm around them. I feel depressed. I feel suffocated. Or we argue, or all I feel is guilt. It's that the relationship or that person primarily sucks you into an emotional space that's unhealthy. That's my read on whether it's toxic or not.
Toxic means sucks you into an emotionally unhealthy space.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's a pretty good encapsulation.
Yeah.
And it's up to each person to decide, okay, what is the balance of this? What is the balance of reward and conflict or problems? Am I predominantly joyful because of this person in my life? Or am I enslaved to some negative emotion because at one point there was joy, or I'm chasing after validation from this person or something that keeps you coming back to a negative experience despite your appraisal that for the most part it's bad.
It can be toxic whether you appraise it as such.
Of course.
Or not, I think.
Of course.
Most of our toxic relationships
continue because you're not conscious.
There was a time when we didn't think of it as toxic, and it was, and then we realized it at some point, like, oh, this is, for me, it's whether it's emotional health, I'll just define as like encouraging adaptive behaviors.
Right, totally.
In thoughts and feelings.
Right.
So
adaptive meaning helping the organism survive and thrive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thriving. I think people are built or thrive best when they're moving towards love and away from fear, and are not ruled by hopelessness and feelings of like just protect what little I have, that scarcity mind state. So I think a toxic relationship can be one that encourages a mostly fearful view of the world. One that
preventing
detaches someone from their self, or what they really like and what they really care about, who they really are. So I think this is like self-actualizing. Man, somebody's really revving a car down there.
Oh my God, someone has to prove that they have a big dick.
I want to talk about that.
Let's talk about it. I mean, I don't always mean that, but sometimes
I happen to know that the driver of this car is a woman. And
he does not.
A woman without a penis.
He does not know that.
I just wanted, like, a lot of people say that when someone goes down the street in a loud motorcycle or on a loud car, people will yell out with their, I'll be in the middle of talking with a friend, they'll go, hey, I bet you have a big dick, or something like that, sarcastically. What they're really saying is that person has a small dick.
Compensating for this thing. Yeah.
And here's my complaint. As someone with a monster dong, I often want to be loud, and I want to take up space. And sometimes I want to, when I'm coming down Runyon Canyon, I want to run through the middle of the street with my arms spread and my head back. And I enjoy that, like, here I am, Sometimes in the woods, I want to howl at the moon. I want to do those things. And I happen to have a monster dong, too, as I said. I don't think that it's fair to assume that just because a person is being loud, they have a tiny little pee-pee. That's all.
No, of course not. However, the ideology, I do feel, stands of someone who has something to prove needing to take up generally more space, because it's like there's that feeling of not being seen that's been produced by over and over feeling small and feeling the need to prove themselves.
If I may quote Kendrick Lamar.
You may.
On You Ain't Gotta Lie from To Pimp a Butterfly. He said, the loudest one in the room, that's a complex.
Yeah. I think the quietest one in the room is a complex, too.
Maybe.
I think that both...
A wise man once said nothing at all. Aubrey
there
Graham.
You go.
Aubrey Drake Graham, for those of you who don't know his name.
Yeah, I think that like a superiority complex and an inferiority complex are kind of the same coin.
It's still a complex, yeah.
It's the same... It
Why can't
boils
you
down
just
to
have
the
a
same
simple?
idea.
I have a simple. I don't have any complexes. All right, next topic.
We have spent quite a while on this, but I think we covered some good shit.
People, it's almost Christmas. We just got through Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Most of us. This is the time of year that my therapist says he can tell that it's the holiday season, even if there were no calendars, even if the clocks didn't change and the weather didn't change. He's like, if you just look at how many appointments I get requests for, I know exactly when it's December.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got family issues, relationship issues. It all comes up when you have to visit your family.
Yep.
So.
Even if you don't recognize it as that, a lot of other stuff can come up around those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might not be directly, but it's like, the check-in of, okay, who's proud of me, who's ashamed of me, who am I on good terms with, who am I on bad terms with,
and how do I feel about
who am I
those
supposed
things?
to be with these people, who am I allowed to be with these people. Yuck, man. And that's, a lot of people fight with their spouses at this time. There's a whole political, there's so many expectations of this. That's what it is. It's the subtle violence of expectations from many directions pulling on a person that, man, what are your expectations for yourself? Take a second to just step back from what your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, mom, dad, brother, sister, grandparents, what all those people want from you, in-laws, clients. What do you want from yourself?
Yeah. You know what? I want to segue into the lightning round.
Storm on the horizon. Oh, it's coming in quick.
So the first lightning round question relates to this idea of expectations. And it comes to us from Reddit user 101woo7 or maybe lolwoo7. I can never tell the difference between a 1, a small L, whatever.
Woo7 is probably woot.
Okay. 7s don't look like T's to me.
This is internet speak. I'll explain later.
Okay, great. The question is, okay for best man to miss bachelor party? ? I was asked to be my brother's best man, and I'm currently on the other side of the globe traveling for a year after quitting my job. With no job, funds are limited. 2 trips to and from the U.S., and the cost of the party will all total about $3,000. Is it okay to just go to the wedding? Thanks.
What you have here, first, thank you for your question, Paul Woot. What you have here is an opportunity to strengthen your relationship with your brother by expressing to him what you care about this engagement, what you care about in your relationship. It sounds like you're excited to be the best man. Maybe you could talk about how you're honored. And you have your own needs, which you sound like you need to express to him. And you're looking to strangers on the internet to tell you that it's okay to skip the, what's this called? Bachelor party.
Yeah.
Of course it's okay. You can be the best man and skip everything but the things that the best man has to do. Now, there may be people in certain subsets who say the best man is responsible for the bachelor party.
Right.
And maybe your brother has that expectation. If your brother wants that from you and you don't have the money to pay for it and you're willing to do it if he pays for it, maybe you should ask for that. I think that could be a totally reasonable thing to say is, hey, I want to do this for you. Unfortunately, I didn't budget $3,000 to fly to the U.S. twice, and I don't have the funds to be there for your bachelor party. I'm okay with missing it. If you're okay with missing it, you can say that. But if you want me there, I'd be there for your sake if you can pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. This person is like going ham with this car right underneath us. There's a garage right underneath where we're recording. I hope that it's not too much of an imposition for you guys.
It's like an auto mechanic's garage.
It literally feels like that. So the other suggestion that I would have is similar to Rob, start with opening up a conversation with just like what is true for you, which is you're really honored that he wants you to be his best man. If that's the case, check in with yourself first. Make sure that is the case. And tell him which of the best man duties you are able to fulfill and which you're not comfortable fulfilling or you're not able to fulfill.
Yeah. Has he already asked you what duties he wants you to do? Like, don't just assume that, I think.
Yeah.
There may be a cultural code wherever you are, but, you know, figure out what's going to be the best wedding for him and probably his wife.
Right. So that was what I was going to say. Tell him which of the best man duties you're comfortable doing, which of them you aren't, and then ask him. If that's not sufficient, you should consider someone else to be your best man. If not, and it doesn't have to be this thing that I feel super guilty about, then I would love to do it.
Yeah. There's no shame in being the second best man.
Yeah, he could have two best men. He could have one person who kind of is the chairperson for the bachelor party, one person that's more of the wedding related duties, and split that among like a close friend and you or another brother. I don't know what his situation is.
You know how you've got a best friend who's just really solid, who you can count on for anything and you know will be there for you if you're in like any kind of an emergency or a crisis. You know that type of relationship?
Yeah, I do.
And then you have another person who's actually fun to hang out with, and that's your real best friend. You know what I mean? But you'd like never turn to if you needed help.
Because they're a flake, but they're super fun.
Yeah, you can have more than one best friend. That's all I'm trying to say.
And that flake guy, maybe he's the right guy for the bachelor party.
Yeah.
But no, it's definitely okay. What is not going to be okay is if you agree to something begrudgingly and then your brother is passive aggressive the whole time and is frustrated with you for not going to this and doing that, then that's no one having a good time. You want to be really clear about the expectations, what you are genuinely happy to fulfill, what you would struggle to fulfill, and make that decision together, or let him decide, okay, when you imagine your ideal wedding or your ideal bachelor party, which scenario is it?
Yeah.
I don't want to get in the way of that scenario.
Start with gratitude and excitement about being the best man.
Yes.
Ask for the expectations rather than assume them.
Yeah.
And then if he expects something of you or is asking of something of you that you can't do, tell him nicely that you can't do it.
I think that's perfect.
And
I think that's
ask
great.
for help if he can help with money or with time or whatever, you know. Ask if you can offload that responsibility to another person and still be the best man in name, or best man for one of the parts and not for the other.
Exactly.
Figure it out in a way that works for both of you. And under it all, try to communicate from a place of, hey, I love you and I'm so happy you're getting married and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Right.
If that's the truth for you.
Exactly.
If it's not, don't do it. Don't go.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, your brother should be the most excited and the most focused on the marriage that he's about to enter into, and not, well,
also,
who did what. And
expect that he totally won't be as the best man. That shit is very, very common. Weddings are fucking stressful for everyone involved in actually making them happen, and the guests. It's like a party for your guests, I guess.
Yeah.
He may have terrible cold feet and just be done with all of this bullshit by the time the actual special day rolls around. Like, if you can help him take off some of the stress of that, I think you're doing a great job as a brother.
Right. That's the other thing. If you end up not being his best man because of this, there are still a million ways you can support him as his brother.
That's a title. That's an outward-facing, appearance-based thing.
Yeah.
You can be there for him whether you're the best man or not, whether you're physically
100%.
there for him or not. You can be considerate and give him something that he's missing, whether that's like he's wrapped up in the stress of it or in the logistics of it. You can take some of that off his hands. You can allow him or invite him to something that would be like, hey, here's a day without your phone where you can get away from all of the flower choices and seating arrangement schemes that your wife has been showing you or your husband, and come out into the woods for a day. Whatever it is, whatever he's missing, you can offer him that. And as long as it's not a demand, I think it would be something he would love to hear.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. So we got another lightning round question.
Yeah, what we got?
Hitting us, lighting us up. And this one is coming to us from Nick Chilson.
All right. I know him.
Yeah. Nick Chilson asks, hey, Rob and Morgan, I need some advice. My bathtub drain is clogged, and right now there's a few inches of standing water in there that smells pretty bad. I've tried plunging the drain and using a hand auger to snake the drain through the overflow cap, but nothing seems to be working. What should I do? I don't want to call someone else to fix this. I want to do it myself. I like to think of myself as pretty, quote unquote, handy, but this issue is a tough one to crack. Please help.
All right. I think it smells nasty. You want to take care of that before the air has you living in a literally toxic environment.
But how would you define toxic?
Toxic as in it makes you sick. It hurts your health.
Kind of similar definition. Anyway, go on.
I mean, that's why the word is that. It's not like a weird coincidence we discovered. Dude, here's what you got to do first. Get a bucket, a scooper, something that you can fill with water from the tub, pour that shit into the toilet and flush it. As long as you have some working drain, get the water out of the tub, put it in the working drain, and get it out of your apartment so that you're working with the empty tub, and then you can start to try and fix it.
Yeah, great stuff.
How you fucking do that? I would go the route of Drano. Probably a plunger. You use something called an auger, which I've never done. That sounds like some type of snake tool, like a pipe cleaner.
Yeah, must be.
I don't know,
but he's done it through the overflow cap.
Yeah, I don't know what the overflow cap is either.
Go right to the drain.
Yeah, definitely try and put something down the drain. Definitely go on YouTube and listen to a real person with his butt crack hanging out, not me and Morgan, whose butt cracks are protected by layers upon layers of clothing and then chairs. You can't see our butt cracks, especially because this is an audio podcast. Yeah, man. We're really not qualified, but we love that you wrote in, and we hope you keep giving us home improvement questions because we don't get a lot of these from our listeners.
Yeah.
And this is probably a good example of why.
So in the way that you are wanting to snake into your drain and access something deeper, I'm actually going to go a level deeper.
Yeah, let's definitely make this a metaphor.
This is what we are. It's not even a metaphor. This is what we are qualified to talk about.
Yeah, talk about it.
So the first paragraph is that your bathtub drain is clogged.
Okay.
The second paragraph is, what should I do? I don't want to call someone else to fix this. I want to do it myself. I like to think of myself as pretty handy.
Ooh.
So I would.
I see where this is going.
I would try to question your attachment to the idea that you're someone handy. Not because you're not, but maybe this is an issue where it would just be easier. The easier route would be to call someone to fix it because they can fix it very fast.
I want to question your criteria for being a handy person means that you don't call somebody for help.
Great point.
You can still think of yourself as a handy person and be attached to that. And I think it's a great thing to be attached to.
Yeah, I think it's great to be handy. You don't have to feel less capable because this is an issue that's tough for you. And you've tried a lot of shit that's pretty advanced.
Here's a quote. Sometimes I think my self-reliance is really just a way to figure out how to live without the things that I need.
Not being dependent on others.
That's
mine.
Okay, this is from a novel, and I don't know why you interrupted. This is published. You just decided that Morgan's gonna finish this one like in some type of impromptu Mad Libs that we're doing. No, fucking no. This is a quote.
This is Rob Zaleski. I'm against improvisation.
This is.
Listen, I didn't hear the part where you said it was a quote. I'll admit it.
All right. Yeah. Well, I don't know what you were checking for your butt crack. Maybe worried it was hanging out. Here's a quote. I have a dream that one day little black children. And then do you want to just fucking finish that? Do you want to take the wheel on this too and correct Martin Luther King? Huh?
No, I made a mistake and I'm really enjoying getting bullied over it.
Yeah, you are. You love that shit.
I'm not. I'm a little masochistic, but not that masochistic.
I thought that you taking off your shirt was a display of like, I'm
wearing
a
really thick sweater and I'm suddenly really hot and I don't have an alternative way of dealing with that. Is it from me bullying? Maybe. Probably contributes. I was already a little hot.
Okay.
Anyway,
cool. I'm
sorry.
Signals.
Listen, I'm sorry that I thought you were. I blacked out during the part where you said it was a quote, and I thought you were just sharing your experience. Stop drinking and blacking out during the podcast. Okay, so this person said,
"Yeah, sometimes I think my interest in self-reliance is really just me figuring out how to live without the things that I need."
Yeah.
This is the main character from this book that I'm reading called Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson.
I will say it sounds like something you would say.
Well, I relate to the main character. And it's something that a lot of people do a lot of the time is, I'm going to be self-reliant. And really, I just fucking need this thing. Like, what would the actual cost to you be? I bet you could figure out a way to do this for free if money is a concern.
Yep.
I bet there's a way you can figure out how to do this for less time than you're investing in it.
Right.
What's this about? Do you need this to prove that you're capable and worthy and a master of your domain? Don't you receive help from other people for other things? Did you wire the electricity in your apartment? Did you install your own plumbing? No, man. You didn't. I know you. I've been to your place. If it was your craftsmanship, it would be duct tape wires on the walls. Or maybe you just loose hanging. I'm not trying to shit on your ability as an electrician. I'm sure you're great. However, just ask for professional help, man. This is something that you need. I hope you get it. I hope that you got it already, because we got this question a fucking long time ago, and it's probably irrelevant for us to even be answering it.
But listen, the relevance is you probably did have to call someone for help. Mm-hmm. And I also want to validate that that's okay. Mm-hmm. You tried your independent solutions, which a lot of people wouldn't even try. So you can still, like Rob said, you can still think of yourself as someone handy, someone capable. And the best professionals know when they need help from another professional.
Here's something that I'm going to recommend. Splitting your needs. You have a need to fix something in your apartment to feel that you are handy, and you have a need to get the stinky water out of your tub. What if you?
Which is more important?
No. What if you solve both with different solutions?
Okay.
What if you get somebody to help you with the stinky water for free, or look up help online for free, or whatever you're going to do?
Yeah.
Or pay somebody, even if it's worth the money to you, which it very well may be.
But honestly, I know for me, when I have an issue with drainage in my apartment because I rent, like they want you to get rid of it as soon as possible. They want you to tell them so that they can send someone to
definitely
fix
tell
it.
The landlord, because they don't want to deal.
They don't want to have a leak
damage
in someone else's unit. Whatever.
They're responsible for this if you rent, which you do, I believe.
Yeah.
That's solving problem one, and then solve problem two by fixing up something else. Do a little project where you install a hook for your jacket on the door, install a little cup on the wall where you keep your pens when you're near where you write. Do something like that where you just like get a hammer, get a screwdriver, get whatever out, and modify something in a way that it makes it more useful to you, and you will feel like the handyman that you know you are, and you won't have shitty water in your bathtub anymore. You're welcome.
And of course, my little addendum to that is look into where that need to feel handy or do it yourself comes from.
Get drunk instead. Don't do that.
You don't have to make a whole thing of it. It doesn't have to become the crux of your life. But when something like this comes up, for me at least, I'll ask myself, where does this come from? Who in my life has modeled that this is really important or essential? Oh yeah,
definitely check out your dad and your role models and see what they do and figure out if that's still useful to you. Maybe it is, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe you can put it down for maybe this is not the right tool to use a hammer on. Maybe this is the tool that you want to use a magnifying glass or a feather or maybe this is the situation. It's not a nail.
But thank you so much for writing to us and leaving yourself vulnerable for this type of advice.
Oh yeah,
probably not the advice you were
this shit.
Not the advice you were necessarily hoping for, but left yourself open to by writing to us, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah.
You seem like a badass boss.
Oh, he's a boss.
So.
Oh yeah, one other thing. Move out to LA.
Yeah.
All right. Come be on our podcast. For real. Get on here. I'd love to hear your advice. All right. Can we get one more quick lightning round?
Yeah, I would love to.
Let's do it.
I foresee it potentially not being super quick, but I love it so much we have to do it.
All right, let's make it the main question. Fuck it.
All right. This question comes to us from Prawlwell76.
Prawlwell.
The subject line is rocks from Grand Canyon. So I went to Grand Canyon where I went to Skywalk and etc. And I took some small rocks. Some had the red soil that was laying on the ground or the mountain floor because I like collecting rocks. Dude, me too. I don't travel much, and this was my first time at a national park. I did not know it is not allowed to take rocks from there. When I found out on the way home, I felt incredibly guilty and just had a heavy heart. I read people would mail them back because of bad luck or because of guilt. My family said I should not worry because I don't know and it's been done. But I can't get rid of this heaviness on my chest, as well thinking I might get bad luck. My question, should I keep them or throw them away or return them? And of return, how do I mail them? And can I mail anonymous without revealing my name or address? Please offer me advice as this guilt is taking a toll on me.
Oh, thank you for that question. And thank you for being such a beautiful person.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
You care a lot and it's something that I'm touched by because I don't see it that often. I'm more often exposed to the people who pee in public and put graffiti on landmarks and are destructive because they're upset at the world and the way that it has served them. And it sounds like you're a more gentle and thoughtful person than most people that I come across.
Yeah. And you inadvertently done something that's frowned upon, but a ton of people do and also don't know that it's not a rule.
It might even be illegal. Let's I don't think that it is, but maybe it is.
I don't know.
It might be against some code. Here's the deal with rules and laws. It only matters if it's going to be enforced. This is not going to be enforced.
That's a good point.
The reason it's there is because if everybody took a bunch of rocks, especially people who want to profit off of these rocks, and filled several bags of them and then moved back to Europe and sold them at a 3-time, any crazy markup, or even cheaply, it would destroy the beauty of the Grand Canyon. And you have taken maybe 0.0000001% of the beauty of the Grand Canyon away from it, and you've relocated it to some place in your home.
Remind you of how beautiful the experience was for you.
Well, it's not doing that right now. It's reminding you that of your belief that you've done a bad thing, and perhaps that you are that you are culpable, that you are to blame, that you should be punished, or you should feel bad. I think you can forgive yourself of that, and I hope that you do. I hope that you keep the rocks and you love them. And if you care about this rule in the future, you can, when you visit national parks or places of interest like that, you can leave them intact and perhaps clean up other people's litter, carry a little Ziploc bag with you, and that would be a way of offsetting whatever kind of damage you worry that you may have done to the Grand Canyon. It's something that I like to do when I'm hiking, is just to have a little bag for trash, and if people have beer cans or whatever left around campsites, pick them up so that it's a little bit better. Better is subjective. Can I do a quick diversion?
Of course.
It's going to be real quick.
Sure.
I was doing this at a favorite hike of mine. There was a bird that was kind of playing with like the wrapper around an Aquafina bottle, that little plastic thing.
Yeah.
And I grabbed the Aquafina thing and moved it into the trash. And I made a joke about how the bird's probably pissed because that was like the piece of its nest that was going to save its baby bird's life. Like the bird's like, that wasn't recycled. That wasn't like trash. That's the best type of cast you can make for a baby bird with a broken wing. How dare you steal that cast from me? Like, we think that, it's a human centric thing of like, if it's natural, it's good. But really, birds might prefer that you give certain types of litter to allow their nests to have those things. It might actually be killing the bird, but then in that case, maybe it's more natural for that bird to die and for the birds to stay more adapted to an environment that doesn't have trash in it. It's a long and complex ethical issue, but it's that's the whole diversion. That's it.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cute and shows the whimsy of like, basically we have no idea the impact that this action has.
We've decided collectively to keep the national parks in their original state as much as possible.
Right.
That's our goal.
Because there are people who really do wish to exploit those environments and not keep them around for other people to enjoy. And you are not one of those people. You are just someone who really enjoyed the beauty of it and cares deeply, obviously, about preserving that. And I think that's amazing and noble. And I don't want you to burn out on that ideal over some rocks. And I think what Rob said was so great about the fact that they're currently in your presence is causing you more harm than good. You have a toxic relationship with these rocks now, essentially. And so my recommendation, actually, rather than causing yourself so much stress over mailing them and anonymity and all that, or holding on to them and keeping them as a reminder of this experience that is stressful for you, if you can, of course, if you can find a way to feel less guilty, then you can hold on to that reminder. Sure. But I would recommend, actually, as sort of borrowing from my art therapy sensibility, is I think that it would be great for you to do something with those rocks or say goodbye to them in a way that really honors the experience that you had with them and honors your commitment to nature. So take them outside in an environment that you love and arrange them in a certain way. Or, cover them in flowers. Just doing something that for you helps you kind of process the experience of giving it back into nature in a way that's beautiful, but also temporary, and, you know, kind of lays the experience to rest for you, but also returns them to the earth in a symbolic way. That's my recommendation.
I like either of these plans.
Yeah.
I think there's more growth, perhaps. It depends on what your needs are. I don't know you as a person, but if you tend to feel guilt about things commonly, if you worry that, let's say this, if you seem like the type of person who has trouble taking up enough space for themselves or meeting their own needs when you know that other people's needs are on the line as well, then I would recommend trying to use these rocks as an opportunity to forgive yourself and allow yourself to have taken this thing for yourself. I've taken a lot of rocks from public parks.
Me too.
There's no bad luck. I have incredible luck. I have very good luck. The bad luck that would come from this would be the guilt that you feel about it is causing the bad luck. It's not some mystical property within the rocks.
It's taking a toll on you.
Yeah. My rocks are good luck for me, and I'll rub them because I believe it. There's no actual physical truth to any of this stuff.
Yeah.
So you could turn these rocks into a good luck charm, or you can practice letting them go, saying goodbye to them. I think either way is a great option.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come after you and go get you for this. You don't need to mail them. If you are going to get rid of them, I think it might be nice to give them, if you know a child who hasn't been able to go to the Grand Canyon but would think it's cool.
Or anyone,
but especially a person younger than you, I think it could be cool to give them these rocks, and they don't have the association and the guilt associated with it, and that'll feel good for you to get rid of them, and good for them to be like, hey, this is a special rock from really the coolest place on earth, perhaps, is the Grand Canyon, and this is a little piece of that. I had a piece of the Titanic's floor when I was a kid. It was a piece of, that's what they told me at least. It was like, sold that way. It's a little chunk of like, this was part of the metal from the Titanic, and it came back, and I was like, I would hold it and I would think about the people on the boat. And I was like, this is so cool that this was underwater and then somebody brought it back up here. So that might be really cool for a kid. And then, you don't have to be reminded of this thing that you did if you don't want to go the route of trying to forgive yourself.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a couple of personal anecdotes that I want to share about this.
Please.
So the first one is that when I was little, I went to a restaurant on vacation with my family, and I accidentally walked out of the restaurant with the cloth napkin that was sitting on my lap. And I didn't realize I was holding it. And we walked a ways away from the restaurant. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm still holding the napkin from there. And I remember feeling so ashamed.
Yeah.
And so guilty. And I bet my family thought this was funny. So then they laughed about how I was feeling about it. And then I felt even more embarrassed and cried. And I was just so upset with myself for doing this. And oh my God, how could I have allowed this to happen? And I felt so careless. Yeah. And I felt like the world was going to come down on me. I mean, I think we walked back to the restaurant and returned it, or maybe we didn't even. But it demonstrates that we can really work ourselves into feeling like this is so much more of a big deal than it really is. Things go missing from restaurants all the time. Restaurants buy extra pens because they know people are going to pocket them when they're signing the check. Things like that. Like the Grand Canyon obviously doesn't have someone who is taking inventory quite like that.
Yeah.
But I think the world has some karmic flexibility for these things, and it would be a real shame for you to compound the emotional experience you're having, or continue to, over something that is significant. I think that's the other thing is like the fact that you care so much about it. That's a beautiful thing. But to let that kind of eat you from the inside out is just not worth it. You are worth more than that.
And you strike me as somebody who has a lot of gifts to share the world, and don't hold yourself back because you did this one thing and dwell on this and spend any more energy than is necessary on it. Go back out there, go to another park, clean up a little bit of trash, share the beauty of the park, take pictures or bring somebody along and help them see the world through your eyes, because it's a beautiful way of looking at things.
Yeah. And so the other little story / confession I have is that I went to Machu Picchu with my parents when I was a senior in college over our winter break. And obviously we were told not to take any rocks. I have a rock over there, like yards from where we're sitting, from Machu Picchu. And I wrote on it, Machu Picchu 2012. And it's a memory that I love and cherish. And
can I take it?
well, if you feel like it would be significant to you.
I think so.
Yeah.
It'd be the rock that I took from Morgan's apartment.
I like Machu Picchu. Also have a rule about taking rocks out of my apartment.
What'd you say?
I like Machu Picchu. Also have a rule against taking rocks from my apartment.
Those rules,
yeah, exactly. No, but my point is, look, like I could choose to feel guilt about it, and to some extent, maybe I do because of what Rob said. If everyone did that, there'd be no Machu Picchu. And I do have some. Okay, I have to grapple with some sort of cognitive dissonance around like, oh, what? So you think you're so special, you get to break the rules, whatever, whatever. And I could go down that guilt loop with myself. However, that rock does sit there and remind me of a trip that I had, a trip that actually wasn't that great.
I'll take the rock. I'm a person younger than you who's fascinated by rocks, and I think it would make you really happy to give it to me, whether you want to or not. So I'm going to do it.
You are welcome to take it. I'm not that attached to it. My point was just that, like, we can, to some extent, decide how we feel about something. And maybe over time, your feelings will shift. And I kind of want to just... I think we want to make you laugh too, because to lighten your load a little bit, to lighten the scenario. Yeah. You're not a bad person, even though we can't be no one else outside of you is the arbiter of that. But we all make mistakes. I stole a rock. I was explicitly told not to, and I did it anyway because it meant something to me. And do I think I'm a horrible person for that? No. Do I think it was the right thing to do? I don't know.
Yeah. There you go.
You're allowed to have moral confusion.
Yeah.
That's another thing we can model.
Yeah. And doing one bad thing doesn't make you a bad person. Even if this was a bad thing.
Yeah.
Even if it was worse than this.
Yeah.
You've done other things that are positive and
in your life.
you're not worthy or unworthy because of the things that you do.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you
guys.
so much for writing.
It's been a great episode. Thank you, Morgan, for talking the way you did, listening the way you did, picking the questions that you did. I just really enjoyed this with you.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed it too. I really appreciate your advice for me in the beginning and the careful consideration with which you always look at our listeners' quandaries.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Mwah.
I hope you guys have a fabulous, fabulous day, night, weekend, evening, whenever the fuck you're listening to this.
You're going to sleep right now. Whatever else you're doing, fall asleep. You just pull over. Good night.
And don't forget to write us with your questions. freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com.
What's that?
freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to those Christmas questions.
Ooh.
Yeah. Hey, we might not get to you to the new year, but when you send us these questions this December, when you're sitting at home twiddling your thumbs on Christmas night, like what the hell are you supposed to do on Christmas night? I'll tell you what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get your brand new, flashy new iPad Pro with the stylus, and you're going to handwrite a question with the stylus to freeadvicepodcast@gmail.com. And we're going to have to decipher it and be like, I wish they had just typed this, but okay, I'm happy you got this new toy. Whatever. That's what you do Christmas night. And your question's going to be like, hey, man, how the fuck do I deal with my family? We're like, I know,
and we're like, we don't know. We're dealing with ours.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see you then. We look forward to it.
Yeah, it's easy if you don't love them at all. You just... Problem is, you probably love them, and it's probably difficult. All right, guys. Yeah, we'll see you next week, and then again next year.
Bye.